identity, land being an emotional subject in India. You seem to have no such problems though in acquiring the land or operating the SEZ. What is your secret?
Well, secret is working closely with the local community to make it happen. We have shown over a period of time, it has taken over 2-3 years for us to get this SEZ up and running. We work closely with the farmers. We identified the land which is not being used for any kind of farming, which was owned by these people, and we work with them, and that helped us consolidate.
This is not just an economic transaction; it's a cultural transaction with the owners of the land, with the panchayats, with the villages. And are you saying that is one of the keys towards a smooth acquisition of land for an SEZ and operation of an SEZ?
Absolutely, because it is they need to see that we are not just coming as a real estate play and just taking this land and making money and going away. That is not. We are there to build a 20, 30, 50-year business and create value to the city, and also be there as because we are establishing our own business and setting up manufacturing facility, having thousands of people working there to create value to the region, one of its kind.
You've heard of some of the benefits and some of the facilities that the Karnataka government is willing to offer investors. I'm going to ask you to wear a hat as the CEO of Boeing or Airbus. Are the measures that Dr. Khatri outlined good enough to tempt you to invest in Karnataka, or are you going to look at China and Thailand and say,
if I was a CEO of one of these companies, I would be looking at what is the reason why we need to be where we need to be. It's never been a China or India. It is how do we make it happen both the places. There are advantages of each of these countries. There is a market opportunity for each of these countries. India is one of the, if you look at from defense perspective, India is much more ripe for them than China, because there is so much restrictions from US to do defense work. India is going to buy $60 billion worth of defense procurement in next decade. So that basically opens up, through the offset requirement which government has put, direct offset opens up a whole opportunity which nowhere else in the world exists.
That's one side of the business. You have to set up a unit in India to take advantage of the offset. Second is, would you choose to set it up in India and in Karnataka?
Well, the second thing comes down to is about, in aerospace, is about quality, and then on-time delivery. Quality comes through the capability. Capability, you got, earlier you start building capability, sooner you will get there. So aerospace in India, Karnataka specifically has taken a long history because HAL has built a supply chain, and we don't need to start from scratch. So by doing that, sooner you will get, means sooner they can procure from here, sooner they can meet their obligations to offset or also do the cost savings through the global source.
So the answer is not India or China, it's India and China. You need to be in both countries and you need to exploit the relative advantages of both those countries. Vivek, I'm going to come back to you. Civil aviation in the country last 20 years, dramatic boom from one airline to now. I think we have 12 domestic, 60 international airlines. I think 454 airports, and like Arvind said, scratching the surface. I think 2% of India travels by air today. Question is not related to that. Where is the Indian plane? Why don't we have an Indian plane? Brazil has an Embraer. Why hasn't India been able to produce its own commercial or military aircraft?
India needs technology to build its own business jet, to build its own commercial aircraft, to build its own transport aircraft, to build its own small jets. Now, Brazil, for example, had a head start. They started in the 70s, and they said we need to build our own plane. And there's a government's focus to have the indigenization in the aerospace sector. And
why does the government need to be involved? Why can't a private enterprise say we're going to build planes in India and go ahead and build it?
The sheer amount of capital required for a build program. And it's a long gestation, and at the end of it, you don't know whether you're going to succeed. So there is a government required support. For example, EADS tried to build their own transport aircraft, and very recently they had a challenge with that, and about 12 or 13 European countries pulled in a huge $7-8 billion again to refinance the project because it was going through a tough patch. So those kind of monies, I'm not sure whether private players have the appetite and the willingness to wait out the gestation period of a research and development.
Arvind, would you second Vivek's view on that issue? How far away are we from the Indian commercial plane?
I think we are quite a bit of time away in reality. But the biggest challenge in the aerospace, as Vivek was mentioning, is the gestation period, and the break-even points of these programs have moved north of 7, 8, 10 years. Assuming the program runs on time perfectly, and looking at history of how the programs have run last 7 years because of the competitive pressure, global supply chain challenges, and quantum jump in the technology, they have always been delayed. So program management is the biggest challenge. We must get that capability, technology transfer, and various elements up
All right. Moving on to another issue, Dr. Khatri, Karnataka clearly has the largest talent pool, and you seem to have all the other elements in place. Some of the concerns that businessmen might have and investors might have is the availability of everything else in Karnataka. Roads, power, water, the usual infrastructural woes that seem to plague the rest of the country. How are you addressing some of those issues?
Now, let's take the example of the Devanhalli area. Already an aerospace park for over 900 acres of land has been identified. The work for development has started. Okay. And we are proposing that about 252 acres of the land could be formed into an aerospace SEZ. Now, the second issue you raised about water. Now, for the Devanhalli area itself, we have identified the source of tertiary water. And the work will also start soon. We have identified 2 points, and we will take the water from the sewer and water board and then treat it and give it to the industry. Along with this, the connectivity to the Devanhalli is very good. You raised the issue of power also. About 120 million units per day that we consume. There's a 15% of the shortage. The Udupi power plant will start supplying by May 1,200 megawatts. Then you have RTPS coming up. Then Bellary will also start with 500 megawatts supplying. Apart from that, the non-conventional sources of energy are also being tapped. 500 megawatts of wind power is there.
I'm going to interrupt you there. On that note, it's time to take another quick break. We'll be back in a little while. Keep watching. Welcome back to the final part of our special discussion on the aerospace industry in Karnataka. Arvind, I'm going to come back to you on the skills issue right now. First question, should the MRO sector, the maintenance, repair and overhaul sector, be treated in exactly the same way that the IT and ITES industry